over a main.
All right, testing.
It's
1,
very,
2.
very far behind, so let's see how the testing sounds here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking. It's very far behind, so I haven't even heard it
Yeah.
yet. It's just now playing the video.
Okay. All right.
So we're doing good.
So how was your day?
Good so far. Good so far. All right, it's up. Let me hear it.
Nice. All right, testing.
It's
1,
very,
2.
very far behind, so let's see how the testing sounds here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking. It's very far behind, so I haven't even heard
Yeah.
it yet. It's just now playing the video.
Okay. All right.
So we're doing good.
So how was your day? How are the levels?
Good so far.
All right, testing.
It's
1,
very,
2.
very far behind, so let's see how the testing sounds here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking. It's very far behind, so I haven't even heard it
Yeah.
yet. It's just now playing the video.
Okay.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
So we're doing good.
Awesome. How are the levels? All right, testing. 1, 2. Yeah.
It's just now playing the video.
Okay.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
So we're doing good.
Awesome. How are the levels? Right, testing. 1, 2. Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty, let's try that. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pit Crew podcast for episode number 16. Today, we got a special guest on. We're going to be bringing in Taylor Kitchen here momentarily. You're probably noticing no Robert Hill this week, but we got Cameron Romano on his first ever episode. So how you feeling, Cameron?
I'm feeling excited, man. Like this was all kind of last minute, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Let's do it.
We're hyped up. We're happy to have you. It's going to be an exciting episode. With that said, I think we should go ahead and bring in our guest, right, Cameron?
I think we should.
Let's do it. There we have it. Welcome, Taylor Kitchen. Whew, this is a guest that we're excited to have. So how you feeling being on the show here, Taylor? And I know that you have your great show Above the Yellow Line. And how you feeling coming on the Drive Smart Pit Crew podcast?
I'm so excited to be here. We connected at Darlington, and that's how this all kind of started. So first off, great to meet you in person and great to finally meet you both virtually here. But I'm so excited to be here. Love the opportunity, and I'm excited to chat.
It's going to be a fun one. So we're going to dive into some questions here and definitely going to dive into your career and figure everything out. Stuff that normally you're the one giving the interviews. So we get to kind of reverse it here. Have you ever been interviewed?
It's rare. It's very rare. So hopefully this goes well. But no, I'm excited to be on the other side of it. It's a unique opportunity.
So where are you from and how did you break into the NASCAR industry?
I'm from the great state of Ohio that many people just aren't appreciative of. But I love the state. So go Bucks, OSU. And I really grew into motorsports at a later age. My grandma had been a fan since I was born, really. And I really just didn't care to watch. I didn't see the appeal. It wasn't exciting to me. And then by some miracle, I decided to just finally watch a race in 2016. It was a Texas night race. Kyle Busch won it. And I was like, okay, this is actually more interesting than I thought. And I went to my first racetrack in 2017 to see a race in person at Kentucky Speedway. And I just fell in love with it. I played sports growing up and it was just something so different than what I've known. And so I got into it at that point, and then I just turned my personal Twitter page into a just NASCAR fan page, and somehow it led to where I am today. So it's all pretty cool.
It's incredible. So I know that you have a media background where you went and got educated on it. Tell me a little bit about that and what made you want to take what you learned, in education and put that into use in the NASCAR industry.
Yeah, I've always been a storyteller, and I came from just a creative writing background and even to just journaling. And I never really knew growing up that that could be a career. I loved to read books when I grew up and everything, but I never thought of it as something that could be lucrative and or just a job that people just did. And so going into high school, I was really big into creating small films and some documentaries, things like that. And then going into college after several career, I guess, major changes, I finally landed on journalism after one of my professors in my writing classes was like, you should really pursue this. I was a film production major at the time, and he was like, you're writing your storytelling abilities and your drive to tell stories, you should be doing journalism. You should be doing creative writing or something in that field. And I took his advice, and it landed me on the path I was. And I got a great education from Bowling Green State University. Go Falcons! And my professors were super helpful and letting me find my path. With Bowling Green, we're by Toledo, so there's Toledo Speedway there, but around Bowling Green itself, there's no motorsports, period. So my professors were really kind in letting me just follow my passion and just being supportive where they could be. But the education I learned there, and I just took some skills that I learned there and just translated it into what I was already doing before I changed my major to journalism. So it all just kind of melded together really nicely when it came down to it.
It all worked out. I mean, obviously, you're really good at getting interviews and being in the media and everything. But coming up in Idaho, I know that you told me now that you moved to North Carolina. Can you walk me through a little bit of that? Obviously, this is the NASCAR hub. You're breaking into the NASCAR industry. Was that a big move for you, or was that something that you're just, I've been looking forward to this, and I'm ready to go, and this is my break into the industry?
Yeah, the move here, it means a lot for several different reasons. What I like to talk about that I don't get the chance to talk about a lot is I was diagnosed with a chronic illness called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is a mouthful. But it is a really gnarly chronic illness, and it left me bedridden for like a year and a half back in like 2019 to 2020. So I had to drop out of college, and I just didn't know what to do with my life. And I started my podcast in 2021 to find community again. NASCAR was the one thing I looked forward to every single week. And so to be able to find that build community and have this platform grow has been so exciting. And once I was healthy enough to go back to school and really realize I can make this a career, the goal was always Charlotte. I wanted it to be the goal. That's where I wanted to be. I just needed to make sure I had the support and the health to do it. And so earlier this year, I stayed around the Charlotte area for about a month just to kind of feel it out to see like what opportunities I could get, the connections I could make. And that sold me. And luckily, end of July, I finally made the move, and I've just been thrilled with how that's gone and starting a life here. It's a beautiful state. And just being able to be in person to work as opposed to working remotely has changed so much for me. But I'm very grateful with all the connections I've been able to make and the people that have been in my corner to help me get to where I am today. But the move has been a long time coming, just personally and professionally, and I'm really glad to finally be here.
I feel like I'm so fortunate to be born and raised in North Carolina, being someone breaking into the NASCAR industry because, every crew member or mechanic or anyone trying to break in, they got to make that move. And it is such a necessary move that everyone has to make. And I feel so grateful that, I just happen to be like in the hub and it just kind of worked out for me. But I'm sure that was a big move on your part. And, congratulations on the success as far as everything in your career. But let's back it up to the social media side of things. So you've grown a lot in social media, whether if that's YouTube. I see you on TikTok popping up on my For You page. I see you on Twitter all the time, everything. How did you get your start in social media and like how did you get the growth in the fan base that you have as quick as you did? Because it was just like a snap of the fingers and it felt like you were on the radar. Was there years building up to this point, or what, did it really just happen that quick?
I think it's been years building up to this point. I've always loved social media. There's always a love-hate relationship to it because you want to have that personal life, but you also really love to share what you're doing and share information with other people and connect with other people. And the core for me for social media has been connection. There's multiple different ways you can use it. You can use it for marketing and everything, but it's always been connecting with others. And when I first really got onto Twitter, I did it for some type of high school class or something like that. I really had no rhyme or reason to be there except to get credits in high school. And then I found NASCAR and I found the NASCAR community on Twitter, and I was like, nobody in my school likes to talk about cars. Nobody likes it. So I was like, we're just going to like tweet all the time and hopefully people respond to that. And to my surprise, they did. And then when I had my show Above the Yellow Line, once I started that, I was like, okay, well, how do I get people to know that this new YouTube channel exists? I was like, we'll just promote it on Twitter. And then that turned into getting an Instagram account and then a Facebook. And I had had a TikTok for a while, helping try to raise awareness for my chronic illness. And then I was like, let's just try to put some NASCAR stuff on here. And that just took off. But I'm really proud of the growth I've had. A lot of, content creators or even drivers and have gone through maybe a third party to gain following, which is at some point is necessary to just, kind of get eyes sponsorship wise or just kind of expand your reach. But none of my following has been bought or through a bot or anything like that. And so it goes to show, dedication and hard work can at least help build a following, at least. And I'm lucky that because I haven't had that artificial, help to build a following, everyone that's been subscribed to my platforms have been really devoted to the content, and I've learned to not only just love the content, but love the personality that goes along with it, and really just build a community from it. So it's taken years to build for sure, and I think this year and I guess late last year is when it really started to take off. And I think I've been able to go to the track, and there's been like 20 plus people that have come up to me to say, hey, love the content and stuff, which has been also really bizarre because I didn't start this thinking that would be a thing that would happen. But it's been really cool to see this take off the past few years, from an idea I had at my kitchen table talking to my dad about maybe making a show to now being in North Carolina and working in the industry. It's been surreal.
Yeah, it's like dreams coming true. Now, obviously, I've seen you at Darlington. How many races have you gone to this year? And, what races are you planning on attending in the future?
This year, it's been Bristol, and I had the amazing opportunity to shadow Doug Rice at PRN and see how they do that. I have a love for radio broadcast, and I did a lot of that in college. So, getting to see it in a real world manner outside of college was so cool. So, Bristol. I went to Martinsville and Richmond back to back. I worked those with Toby Christie at tobychristie.com. And then I went to the 600 as a fan that entire race weekend. I went to Mid Ohio for ARCA this year and IndyCar. And then Darlington was my next race. I was gonna go to Michigan, but then I moved and I didn't feel like making the trip back up. But the rest of this year will be the Roval, so I'm excited to go there as a fan, kind of enjoying my last year really going to the track as a fan before I'm all in on work. And then later this year, the one thing I wanted to do when I started watching the sport was go to the Martinsville cutoff race because that's just such a fun, intense race to go to. And I finally am gonna go there as a fan and enjoy the whole weekend of racing. So very excited about that.
So we talk about the future. Do you see one day where you're going to be at the track every single week covering NASCAR? I know that that's the goal. Walk us through a little bit of the inside of potentially what we could see next year in 2025.
There's a lot that I've been working on for next year since January. And I'm excited to announce more when I can, but I'm really excited to be able to dive more into this industry, and I've had great opportunities to work in the industry, not only on camera and social media wise, but even on the business side too. Through my work with AT Racing Development, I had a year where I was working with Hornaday Development, and so I've had a really well-rounded experience in motorsports just starting out my career. So I'm excited to kind of continue using those skills that I've learned forward into 2025, but it definitely will involve me going to a lot more tracks next year for sure.
Absolutely. So we asked Natalie Decker a similar question because she also has this issue. Obviously, being a female, it can be a little bit difficult in the industry. How do you deal with, some of the comments and stuff that you may get? Because I know Natalie had a very similar issue when we had her on, and she talked us through a little bit on how she mentally deals with that and just how she goes through that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of me is like, they're online. It's just somebody talking through a screen. It doesn't bother me at all, really. I've learned to deal with it. Some of the comments are really aggressive, and when people go through to my social media accounts and literally like seek me out on all my social media platforms, go to my DMs and let me know either how much they don't like me, how much my voice isn't allowed in the sport. That's aggressive, and I end up blocking people, right? I don't end up taking that to my personal life though. I don't know how I've been able to do that. I don't know what the mental space is like for me to just be able to separate the bad comments from my personal life. But I think at least I'm attempting to do a good job of separating my work life from my personal life. And sometimes those combine because of social media. But it really is just the support I have through my platform and the followers that I do have that love the content I do, that have been there since either year one or have just joined this year, are there for me and respect that female voice in the sport. And I focus more on that than the negative comments, really. So it sucks that there are people out there that don't appreciate a female voice or a different voice. And I get it. Change is hard. Accepting a new opinion is hard, but I think the world is better when we're able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and listen to other perspectives, because otherwise we're not going to learn and we're not going to grow. So I really just, I guess the cliche saying is block out the haters. Just because there's more love on the side of my content and the people that watch it than there is hate, and just to give more energy to those people, it's just not worth it. And as long as I'm happy with the content I'm creating and the people that I'm working with are happy with the work I'm doing for them, that's all that really matters. But I do appreciate everyone who does back me up in the comments, and that just reminds me that like I am a actual person. I'm not just my on-screen persona. I feel things, and yeah, it's hard sometimes, but you just don't take that home with you at the end of the day.
I get that. I mean, I know from my personal experience on YouTube, I mean, when I started, I think everyone found me annoying, but I learned that there is a large amount of people online that love you for who you are and support you no matter what, and then there's that very tiny 1% that try to outshine the 99%, and sometimes they do a good job at it.
Oh yeah.
That's something I learned as I've gotten older. I mean, I've been doing YouTube for I think like 7-8 years now. I feel like I've been here for dinosaur years, but that's just something I've learned over time of where it feels like that very, very small percentage will sometimes outshine that, but it's important to not forget all them people that are casually tuning in, and they're never gonna comment a thing, and they're just gonna watch, occasionally put a like on the video, and, you know, they may leave a little comment here and there that don't mean that much, but them are the people who love you and support you, and that very, very silent, small amount is just they have problems they need to work on. But with
And I think with that though too is like I've learned through the bad comments and stuff is like people pleasing is something I love to do, but when you grow a following and you have so many people watching you, you cannot please everybody. And the moment you let that go, you feel a little lighter. So that's part of it too, in my just from my perspective as well.
Oh, I learned that a long time ago. You can't please everyone. Cameron
I wish I
knows.
learned that a long time ago.
Cameron knows well from running my
Yep.
race in the league. But with that
Yep.
said,
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Cameron Romano and see what questions he has for Taylor Kitchen here on the podcast.
So, my first question is, what did you think of the race weekend at Watkins Glen? And obviously, I think we're both Ryan Blaney fans. Not a good weekend to be a Ryan Blaney fan, but a
No.
great weekend to be a Chris Buescher fan, to see him snap a winless streak and to see him fend off Shane Van Gisbergen. I think it was fantastic, especially on a last lap pass in overtime, something that hasn't happened at Watkins Glen in years. Overall, what did you think of the racing this weekend?
Was a little disappointed in terms of the tire. I thought it would give us a bigger difference in terms of the product we saw than it actually did, just with all the hype around it. But it did make an improvement. Ty Gibbs, I believe, after the race was like, we just cannot pass in these cars. And depending on where you are on the track, if you have cleaner air, it's a lot easier, right? That's with any track. But
Yeah.
the product was, I think, better than what we'd seen in the past. So as Goodyear continues to try to bring a better tire and NASCAR tries to bring us a better product with these cars at these road courses, I think we're making steady progress forward. But that last lap battle, oh my gosh, that was so good. The aggression for these races is kind of getting nuts with the Gen 7
Yeah.
car. The composite bodies, they're a lot harder to really kind of beat up. So you're able to bang doors and just not really hurt the car as much, besides maybe knocking a toe link. But that last lap battle was incredible. And I actually interviewed Chris Buescher today for Racing America, and I was
Oh,
able to be in
really?
the shop. Yeah. Yeah. So I was there. What time is it? I was there maybe like 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, like talking to him and Scott Graves and about that win. And he was like, I didn't know I had the win, because I was like, what was it like to, feel in the moment that you had the win? He's like, oh, I didn't think I had it, but I saw my opportunity and tried to hold him off. And just to see Chris and his success over the past few years and the kind of the page that RFK has turned has been so cool. And just the feel of the shop and everybody, sharing a laugh, drinking a beer, and celebrating that win. It was really cool to be a part of. But the product this weekend was pretty good. It was all right. But for Chris to get that win against a road course pro and a field of 16 playoff drivers that did not have the best weekend, but knowing that they were fighting for everything they had, like, that's a very impressive win and one that would rank high on Chris's list for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And circling back to Chris Buescher's win, I saw this on Twitter. Yes, I think it was either yesterday or the day before. Someone took the entire last lap of Watkins Glen and put the song from Days of Thunder in.
Yo. Awesome. Sorry.
And,
Continue.
and I'm just like, I can watch this over and over again because it's just amazing. And I can guarantee you that soundtrack was playing in Chris Buescher's head when he made that pass on SVG.
Yeah, I mean, that was such an incredible moment. And I will tell you, like, I'm a really big fan of Chris's. Back in 2022, when I went to the 600 for the very first time, I went to the RFK fan day. I signed up for a raffle, and I sent this to my parents today because I was like, hey, I'm interviewing Chris Buescher today. But I won a raffle, and the RFK, like, phone number or whatever sent me a video of Chris pulling my name out of a bucket and said, congrats, Taylor, you're the winner. And so to go from that, like being a fan of 2022 to like interviewing him professionally today was like a full circle moment. Of course, I didn't show Chris that because, professional setting and everything, but
Yeah.
like to have that moment and then see him, winning races this year and stuff is crazy. And, he's been so close so many times this year, and they've just let it slip, or there's been a circumstance on track that just has not let it happen. So it was so good to see him finally get that win, and I am sure that soundtrack was totally playing in his head during that moment on the final lap.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Going back to just since the start of this season, was there any particular moment, whether it was a cup race, a truck race, Xfinity, or even ARCA, that surprised you the most?
I think maybe not even a race that surprised me, though. I think Bristol, honestly, and going into Bristol this weekend, the tire, I did not expect it in the spring to be as just rambunctious as it was. That's a bold word for me to use, man, but
I think
rambunctious.
I think rambunctious would be an appropriate term here.
It was just a wild race, and being there in person, and I just remember seeing cars going really slow around the corner. I don't know if the TV caught it or not, but I'm up there in the press box like, "What is going on?" And then we're seeing, like, these big chunks of rubber just brush to the top of the track, like the biggest like, rubber marbles I've ever seen in my life. And it was just an unexpected instance of just Goodyear bringing an excellent tire that just wore way too much, and it really challenged these drivers. So part of me selfishly is hoping we see the same thing this coming weekend at Bristol, because that was one of the most fun races this season. And to be fair, we've had incredible races this season. For me, probably like top 10 in NASCAR seasons ever, but I hope we see the same thing this weekend. Now, as for the crew chiefs and the drivers, I'm sure they're hoping not. They know now at least know how to deal with it, but it was a stressful situation for them all for sure. But that definitely surprised me. And in terms of industry talk, obviously from the outside looking in, we don't know a lot about the charter negotiations. We know what the teams are gracious enough to share, and same with NASCAR, but I didn't expect that to be as big of a talking point this season as it was, and the direction it's taken I think was another shock to me as well. So from a racing perspective at Bristol to industry perspective at from charters, those were the things that I think surprised me the most this year.
I know you mentioned the charters. This will be my last question before I pass it back to DLB. Um, I know 2311 and I think Front Row Motorsports still have yet to reach an agreement with NASCAR. But what surprised me earlier this morning, 2311 just announced that they gave Bubba Wallace a contract extension. Um, do you think there's more to that, or do you think that just means that they finally came to an agreement with NASCAR?
Believe they came to an agreement with NASCAR. And the reason why is I think 2311 and even Denny Hamlin, at least from their perspective, have been very transparent about how this process has gone and what they have and haven't done. And the fact that we see that there was a contract extension signed for Bubba Wallace, or a contract renewal, I should say. But we haven't heard anything about the charter agreement, tells me that that hasn't been completed yet. And even to looking at somebody like Bob Pockrass, who did answer some questions about this as well, said he would suspect that they just changed some of the wording in Wallace's contract to just make it work, not even just for now, but just to make it work considering the current situation they're in with the charter agreements. So it's very interesting, if you dive into it, and just the teams that haven't signed, the teams that have, what that means, what that looks like. It's very messy right now, but I would suspect that there is nothing that's been done on the side of the charter negotiations for 2311 or Front Row Motorsports yet.
All right. I'm going to pass it back to DLB because I think he has a few more questions for you.
He's rubbing his hands. He's ready.
I'm always
He's ready.
He's
like,
cooking.
Let him cook.
I'm always ready. So obviously Cameron said that y'all both may share a favorite driver, being Ryan Blaney. When you got into NASCAR, at the beginning days, did you have a favorite driver at the time? Was that Ryan Blaney, or did that casually grow over time?
I was definitely a Hendrick Motorsports girly when I was getting into the sport. I was a big fan of Chase Elliott. They talked about him a lot during the first race that I watched for the Texas race, and I was like, okay, so I guess he's a pretty big deal. So I decided to follow him, and I'm like, okay, Hendrick Motorsports, that's a team. So I followed all of Hendrick Motorsports, and then I saw the Penske games, and that changed everything for me. Like, those games and everything that Penske did with their media, with all of their series, was so fun. And I'm like, this team has personality. Like, they're all fun, they're nerds. Like, I'm a nerd. I like Star Wars. I like Dungeons and Dragons and like all these different nerdy things. And I'm like, this team I can get behind. And so it became kind of a Penske fandom. And working in the sport now, like you're still fans of these drivers, but I think what's cool is once you work in the sport and you talk to more of them and you interview them at the track and things like that, is you become a fan of all of them, whether you didn't like them back in the day or not. Because I will admit, like I was not a Denny Hamlin fan after he wrecked out Chase Elliott. When he was in the 24, was almost got his first race win. I was like, Denny, like, no, don't be that guy. But now I love Denny and I absolutely respect the space that he has in the sport. And that just took some time of talking to him and just learning him. And so definitely started off as a Hendrick Motorsports fan with Ryan Blaney, and then it turned Penske. And now it's just like all these drivers are so cool. At the end of the day, they're just people, but they just have a really cool job, and just learning more about them and their careers, and even to just personally what drives them through their career has been really cool.
Absolutely. So my next question is, obviously you've been doing a lot of social media stuff, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, everything. Is that the end goal to blow up and have a huge YouTube channel, or is the end goal to maybe one day work for a NBC, USA, Fox, or one of these TV networks of where you can go in the direction of like a Jamie Little, or go in the direction of maybe commentary or just interviewing or whatever the case may be? Or is it to always stay dedicated to your show above the yellow line and everything you have built with your own brand?
It's such a complicated place to be in, because the brand that I've built came from a time in my life where I was struggling and I had no clue what was next. And so I'm very protective of it. And, over time I thought that was the end goal, is I just build this up to be this huge media company. And I would love to do that and working towards that. But I also know above the yellow line can also be a jumping point for myself, or, anybody else that's part of my group, to excel somewhere else in their career. And I don't like the idea that you need to settle on doing one thing. I have loved being able to pursue the business side of motorsports while also pursuing the media side of it. And I think you can do both successfully as long as the people you're working with allow you to do that. And so I always thought it would be really cool to be a pit reporter, to have that opportunity to maybe shadow somebody and then try it out. There's different pathways and I guess steps you have to take to be able to go in that direction. But what's really cool is working with Racing America right now. I'm doing these shop hits where I'm interviewing the Cup Series winners after the race weekend, and getting to work with them through TobyChristie.com has been life changing for me. And they're trying to prepare me for the next step of doing those more sit down interviews, and then maybe going on pit road and doing the pit road reporting. And so I guess to answer your question, when I started this, I didn't have an end goal, really. I just had what I hoped this could be, and I'm just along for the ride. And I kind of am still that way. Whatever opportunity comes about that I feel like, I could help somebody out, or where I feel like I can learn and grow and kind of find more of my path, I'm going to take. And what I'm excited for in 2025 is I'm going to have the opportunity to continue both working on the professional side and working on the media side, and kind of getting a best of both worlds. And hopefully, I truly do believe that you have to work super hard for your opportunities, and you have to go through the right channels and take the proper steps to, get to those big opportunities like pit reporting. And I hope that what I'm doing next year and what I'm continuing to do will hopefully get me there someday, because I'd love to have a chance to be in the booth or do pit reporting or something like that. That would be really cool.
I think you're on the right track. Very similar to mine and my YouTube channel, DLBTV. I done iRacing videos from when I was 19 to 26, and it only took one connection with DriveSmart that got me to the racetrack every weekend. And them knocks can come at any time, and that really goes to show the tool that social media could be. And I feel like when I started my YouTube channel, I felt like my end goal was, okay, I want to like be a successful YouTuber and do all this stuff, and I wanted to do it under my own brand. But when that opportunity came, I had to jump at it. I had to take it. And them opportunities can come at any time for anything and be straight out of the blue, and could definitely change everything. So it looks like the even though you don't have an end goal, it looks like your end goal is still to one day be at the track every single weekend in some form. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm excited because it looks like next year that'll be the case. So again, I can't say anything right now, but I'm really excited. And you're right, like the connections you make, along the way, they're not by chance. I believe everything happens for a reason. You are where you're meant to be, even if it's not the right place at the time. It gets you where you're supposed to go. And all the experiences and all the people I've met through working with AT Racing and Development, the Hornadays, working with some of the drivers I have, and even through social media, a lot of these opportunities came from teams reaching out to me on social media saying, "Hey, like, would you be interested in doing a series with us, or would you be interested in working with our driver on our social media strategy and things like that?" Like, social media has changed my life for the better. It's given me a career that I love, and I truly don't feel like I'm working at all because I love what I do so much. And yeah, but the end goal is to be at the track as much as I can and do what I love while I'm there. And I'm excited to be able to do that next year. So
Absolutely. It sounds like a cool deal and definitely a very, very bright future. So you was telling me how you're sitting down talking to your dad about, this YouTube channel. And I would imagine they are super proud of how that conversation can change to you living in the hub of NASCAR, preparing for what will potentially be the biggest year of your life. How do they feel about the success and how quickly it happened, seeing their daughter go from your average girl to doing all this social media stuff and now potentially being at a racetrack every weekend?
I am so fortunate to have grown up with parents that have just wanted us to follow our hearts in what we do and just support us along the way. And obviously, there's some careful guidance of like, okay, like maybe YouTube isn't like gonna like make you an income. So maybe do this while you do that. But like that guidance and their just ever loving support has helped me get to where I am today, and they've done it without judgment. I think when a lot of parents are like, "Oh, like my kid's a YouTuber, like what in the world?" Like my parents never did that, and again, it goes back to when I made this. It was just my goal was to find community, get my life back together, find people to talk to, find people to talk to something that I'm very passionate about. And my best friends now, like in the world, Dom, Rob, Ben, Adam, Brandon, all of them like that are part of my group every single week. I met them online through this show that I do. And like my parents from years ago when we were at the kitchen table and I was super sick and we didn't know what my life was going to look like, what I could be capable of, what they would never have imagined. I would have never imagined that I would have gotten here today. I did not think this would be a possibility or anything at all based on my health a few years ago. So I know that they're beyond proud. I actually called my dad because I knew he was off of work right after the Chris Buescher interview, and I talked to him about how it went. And my grandma, I called her too because we talk all the time about NASCAR, and I just wanted to, fill her in on what I was doing. But I know that they're beyond proud, and I think we're all kind of shocked, but just really, truly blessed that everything that I've worked towards and, everybody I've surrounded myself with have just been nothing but supportive. And, I've been able to get to where I am today.
Absolutely. I feel like that is one of the biggest things with chasing a dream, especially at a young age. You got to have supportive parents, and that can go a very, 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 very far, like very long way. I feel like I definitely wouldn't be nowhere near the position I'm in without my parents and the support that they gave me. Same thing for anyone coming up through the ranks, whether if they want to be a driver, be in a media, or be into social media. But what tips and advice would you give a young Taylor who's wanting to potentially be in this position one day, that wants to follow your route and do what you're doing, whether if it's male or female? What advice would you give them to one day be in your position?
I mean, there's a few key things. For me, it's surround yourself with the right people. And if you don't feel like you're around the right people, that's okay. Like, seek them out. Never be afraid to ask for help. Never be afraid to send a cold email, reach out to somebody's DMs asking for advice, because you never know who's going to say yes. And even too with family, I'm fortunate with my parents, my grandparents, my significant other, my siblings. I'm a triplet, so I've grown up with my siblings. We're the best of friends in the world that they've supported me. So surrounding yourself with the right people. A lot of it is too, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you don't know how to set up a camera, if you don't know how to live stream or anything, ask somebody. I think too for me is staying true to who I am. Whenever you make content, what people want to watch is somebody who is their authentic self. It's not fun to see somebody putting on a front and putting on a show for an audience. So some people, sure, but you feel like you're watching something fake and totally processed all the time. And that's just disingenuous. So for me, if you're wanting to make content out there, be your genuine self and you will garner a following that truly respects you for you. And that's been a game changer for me. I think along with that is, always take every opportunity you can, but also know in your heart what's best for you, and I think you stick to what you believe in. And also the last bit of advice is I get so many DMs all the time of like, I have this idea for a show, but I don't know what to do. Or, how did you get your start? Or what do you do? I just started. I wanted to talk to people. So I took my phone and, uh, put a voice memo in there and uploaded it to YouTube. Just start because you never know where it'll take you. And then you'll figure out the pieces later. That's my advice.
That is amazing advice. And yes, the group of people around you is very important, whether if that's your friends, you have to have positive people around you. And as far as being authentic, I will say when I met Taylor at Darlington, I was very surprised. It's exactly what you get on camera, the live stream, everything. There is no like media voice or anything like that. It's straight exactly what you get. How do you stay that authentic? Because I was surprised by that. I thought it was an act.
No, I don't even know, man. I'm me. I'm unapologetically me. I'm kind of weird, quirky. My voice, like, I don't even know. What you see here, how I talk to my family is what you get on camera. And I think for the longest time during lockdown and when it was just me talking to the camera or my phone, it like you almost treat it almost like you're talking to a friend. And that's what I want my audience to leave with is they feel like they're talking to a friend about something that they love. They feel like this is a welcoming environment for them. And if I can portray that as my authentic self through a camera, then I'm doing my job. And that's just who I am. How that works, I don't know. I know some people have a performance, just kind of like I guess a performance voice or a performance type of cadence that they have on camera. And you have that. Journalism school teaches you that. But yeah, this is me. If you meet me in person, this is me. This is what you get. So
It's funny because it's the same thing with me. I remember when DriveSmart reached out to me the first time, we got a phone call, and they were so surprised because they see this like high energy, like young man on, making these crazy YouTube videos, and they're like, they were expecting that to be an act because they were working with other content creators, and they're like, oh, he's gonna be like, not what we see on cameras. Nope, he's exactly the same. He's a complete nut job. Perfect. We want him. So that's kind of how that works out. But I'm going to go ahead and pass you back to Cameron and see what final questions Cameron has for you.
I just want to circle back really quick to what DLB said, like as far as like the high energy. Because when I met DLB for the first time in Daytona back in February, he had that exact same energy when we met in the parking lot outside of that. Well, what was the name of that restaurant again?
I don't remember. It was right across the street from Daytona. It was the whole event.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, this is DLB. Okay. My one question, I have obviously I've been a fan of motorsports for a while. I got it from my parents. My mom and dad were watching NASCAR back in the day. My dad kind of drove away from NASCAR, and now he's watching NHRA drag racing. I was just wondering if you had any interest in watching NHRA championship drag racing. Because let me tell you something. I took my dad to an NHRA drag race back in literally last year, and I got more bang for my buck than with a regular NASCAR ticket.
yeah, I think it all comes down to like fan access, and this is a whole conversation. I had a whole video scripted to talk about this, but I didn't have the resources I wanted to be able to put something truly together. So it's going to be an off-season project for me. But when we talk about like access at NASCAR, it feels very limited. And after COVID, they restricted, who could be on pit road, how many people can get VIP passes, how you get those. But I went to my first IndyCar race last year, And the paddock passes were so inexpensive. I actually took my cousin to his first IndyCar race this year, and he loved it. And I was like, I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna get paddock passes. We're gonna walk the grid. We're gonna get all the autographs you want. And it also goes down to the drivers and how accessible they can be as well. And I will say the NASCAR drivers are doing a really good job of being accessible to their fans. But I have heard NHRA gives everything to get to ticket an incredible experience, and I would love to venture out to one of the races. I actually have a friend, AJ, who does some PR for a team, and he's like, "Are you gonna make it out to a race?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I hope so." So if they come on down to Charlotte at some point, I would love to go and experience it, because I've heard it's unlike anything else. The noise is
It
insane. I've heard
it
so.
it really is. And let me tell you something, there's nothing like getting to the drag strip early in the morning, parking your car, and then a couple spaces over is a top fuel dragster team building their car.
That's insane. Like, that's
And
so
then
cool.
like you got the driver there as well. He's looking over the car, and then he sees that a bunch of people are crowding around his trailer. He's taking pictures, signing autographs, having conversations, and then they get on a little moped and get to the drag strip.
So cool. Like, I love that feels approachable to me. The reason why I've tried and struggled to get into Formula One is it doesn't feel approachable. It doesn't feel like I can just pick it up and feel like I fit in there. When you go to like your short tracks and you look at series like NHRA and even IndyCar, where the drivers are there and they want you to have a good experience, but they're also there to do a job. But you can see right with your own eyes, right in front of you, what they're working on, how the teams are. Like, that's so fun. So yeah, I'd love to venture out to see a race, and obviously exploring more of the short track scene and some just other odds and ends with motorsports as well. But definitely have to make my way out there for sure.
All right. I think on that note, I think I'm going to pass it back to DLB. So DLB, take it away.
Absolutely. So, as I'm wrapping up my final questions here, one of my last ones is, what does a day by day look like for Taylor Kitchen?
I'm laughing because there is none. It's working in media is 24/7. And the only time you have off is the time you will allow yourself, because when you're not putting out content, you run the risk of losing ground. And like this week, for instance, I had personal matters I needed to attend to, but I was like, oh my God, but that's time where I'm not streaming and I'm not whatever and I'm losing progress. And then there's a whole spiral with that. But typically, Sunday nights is after the race. I'll throw a recap together and I'll post it on YouTube, and I'll stream after that. Monday is, I wait for a call from Racing America, see if they need me. We schedule an interview, and those typically happen Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. In between that, I'm having meetings with my drivers that I work with on their PR social media strategies. I'm analyzing their content. I'm having calls with potential partners for my drivers, potential partners for my show. It's literally like a nonstop week. And some days I might have the mornings off and I can just chill. Like, it's a half weekend. And then I'm working from like 2 p.m. to like 3 a.m. There's no consistency. What I can count on at least is my Sundays are pretty consistent, which is good. But when you work in media, there is no consistency. There is no normal day. But I am fortunate to be able to have a job where I'm remote, where I can make my hours. But if you want to run a successful business and take all the opportunities you can, your hours are not 9 to 5. They're 24/7. So there's what the normal day or days look like in my life. There's no normal.
I completely understand that. So, final question. Where can everyone find you at? And tell them a little bit about your Above the Yellow Line show, and shout out any social medias you want to shout out, and let them know about your shows and your podcast and everything you got going on over in the land of Taylor Kitchen.
Yeah, so if you go to AboveTheYellowLine.com, that's where we have all of our social medias at. We have a little bit of a different handle for every single platform, kind of, sort of. So just go to AboveTheYellowLine.com. That's where you can learn more about me, the crew that works on the show, our partners, Happy Hour Racing, and then we also have Goat Locker Racing, two incredible companies. Goat Locker Racing is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that helps veterans and first responders find community through iRacing, and they've been incredible to work with and just help out and really promote their mission, and what they do is incredible. So anything I can do to help support them, I want to, and just my audience also adores them as well. So you can learn more about all of that at AboveTheYellowLine.com. And of course, every single week we have race recaps coming up the night of the race. or I guess the night after the race. And then we have live streams on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about the latest NASCAR news with the crew at Above the Yellow Line. And then, of course, next year, we're going to have some exciting stuff coming up. So definitely go to AboveTheYellowLine.com to keep up with that. Sign up for the newsletter because there's going to be a lot coming up soon, but we're very excited for it.
Always exciting news. I'm excited to see where your future takes you and where your career ends up, because I really feel like you are going to go far. Thank you so much, Taylor Kitchen, for coming on to the Pit Crew podcast.
Thank you both so much.
Whoa, Cameron, how'd you feel? First episode, you got through it, you survived. How was it?
I did. It was honestly, it was awesome getting to talk with Taylor. We talked for a little bit before the show. I've been following Taylor for just a little over a year. Just stumbled across a random live stream on TikTok, and I think it was one of her race recaps. But this has been an awesome experience. I'm very fortunate to have been given this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to what we have lined up down the road.
Absolutely. So with that said, I say we give away some Kyle Weatherman merch.
Let's do it.
What you got to do to win this Kyle Weatherman t-shirt is you got to put something in the chat. So all you guys watching, put something in the chat, and we're going to do a random draw here, and I'll let you guys know who wins it. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel, and we got a Matt Deason winning the Kyle Weatherman t-shirt. So Matt, here's what you got to do. You got to go on Twitter, go on X. You got to hit up Go Drive Smart over on X. Send them a tweet. Send them a message, give them your shipping address, your shirt size, whatever the case may be, and they'll get back to you, and they'll get that bad boy sent over to you. So how about that? And it's been an amazing show here today. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And with that said, that's episode number 16 of the Pit Crew podcast, and we'll catch you next Wednesday night at 8 p.m.